with Dr.
Locations in Bellefontaine, Springfield, and Beaver Creek. We are never hard to find. For more information, call or visit our website today to set up a free consultation. Take the next step to the healthy smile that you deserve. Dingra Orthodontics. Your life, your smile. We make it better.
Sandals Grand Antigua was incredible.
The pool was as large as the ocean.
And the beach was perfect.
We're still raving about the service.
He loved the diving. He'd always wanted to try it.
Our suite was so exotic, it even had a pool.
We dined at 11 restaurants.
All included, just like everything else.
But what I remember most was falling in love all over again. Sandals Grand Antigua. Save up to 65%. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
CNN, the most trusted name in news.
There is plenty of speculation about what makes President Trump tick, and my next guest says it is a lot of it is wrong. A lot of it is wrong. I want to talk now with Dr. Allen Frances, Professor Emeritus of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at Duke University Medical College. Thank you very much, sir. I read the letter today. You were the chairman of a task force that wrote the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 4. Those are the guidelines for diagnosing mental illness, and you have some strong opinions pertaining to the president. In a letter to the editor to the New York Times, here's what you write. Part of what you write, you said most amateur diagnosticians have mislabeled President Trump with the diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. I wrote the criteria that define this disorder, and Mr. Trump doesn't meet them. He may be a world-class narcissist, but this doesn't make him mentally ill because he does not suffer from the distress and impairment required to diagnose a mental disorder. So what are the characteristics of narcissistic personality disorder, and explain why you think it is incorrect to apply them to the president as many are doing?
Well, these are people who are grandiose, self-absorbed, self-promoting. They lack empathy towards others. They'll exploit others. They need admiration. They like to feel very, very special. Now, you don't have to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist to recognize that many of these things may apply to President Trump. But that's not relevant to making a diagnosis of mental illness. You also have to experience distress and impairment. And Donald Trump causes distress. There's no reason to think he experiences clinically significant distress. And instead of being impaired by these characteristics, he's been rewarded with the highest position within our power to grant. He's now in charge of our country and the fate of the world. So certainly be aware of the fact that he has these features, but don't call him psychiatric names. Yeah. Psychiatric name calling won't help him, and it very much harms people who do have real mental illness.
That's what I want to, because that's not to say that you don't have strong feelings about the president, because you go on to write this. You said, Mr. Trump causes severe distress rather than experiencing it, and has been richly rewarded rather than punished for his grandiosity, self-absorption, and lack of empathy. It is a stigmatizing insult to the mentally ill, who are mostly well-behaved and well-meaning, to be lumped with Mr. Trump, who is neither. Why do you say that it stigmatizes the mentally ill when people apply these sorts of terms to the president, in your opinion?
There's a great confusion between people being bad and people being mentally ill. So when there's a mass murder, the question always arises, was he crazy? And the National Rifle Association loves to say it was the mental illness, not the gun, that we should blame. When people commit terrorist acts, is this person crazy? We put many rapists in mental hospitals on the grounds, incorrect grounds, that they have mental illness rather than they're simple criminals. We should denounce Donald Trump in very clear terms for being incompetent, for being impulsive, for being ignorant. We should denounce his power grab, his fights against the court, the risks of him damaging our democracy and trying to establish a dictatorship. All this is fair. All this is absolutely necessary. There's no reason to call him psychiatric names. The people today, it's been remarkable, the response to the letter was strongest amongst people who have mental illness, thanking me because they don't want to be lumped with Trump. bad does not equal mad. Most acts that are bad in our world, that are evil in our world, are not committed by the mentally ill. Most people who are mentally ill are fine people, and I think it's a great disservice to them to say that because Trump is acting so badly, that necessarily he has a mental illness.
So my question is, have people come to use what you refer to as psychological name-calling because they either dislike the president's personal style or his policies? Isn't that unfair to him as well?
I think that being fair to Donald Trump is not one of my great ambitions in life. Being fair to mental patients certainly is. And I think that we have to fight his threat to democracy on political grounds. This is a political threat completely new to our country, and one that has to be taken very seriously. It almost trivializes the threat and reduces the thrust of the opposition to think that psychiatric name-calling will stop him.
Yeah, we do want to be fair. We have to be fair here, and that's why I asked that question, because there are people who are watching this and they're saying, by you saying this and writing this letter, that the comparison to Donald Trump is that it's an insult. He's an insult to the mentally ill. Am I correct with that? You don't think that's insulting?
Absolutely, absolutely correct. I couldn't have said it better myself.
But is that not insulting to him?
Well, I think it's a funny question. Being fair to Donald Trump when he's so unfair to everyone else is a high standard for people to hold. And I think the people who've written the letters saying he's mentally ill, and there are about 4 or 5 petitions with professionals and other people saying he's mentally ill, I think they mean well. I think they're puzzled by what he's doing, they're afraid of the future, and they think that giving him a psychiatric diagnosis might be one way of stopping him. But my take on this is that this is a political threat to American democracy, and it requires a political solution. That the future of the country will reside in the Republican Congress, it will reside in the Supreme Court, it will reside in the next election. It won't be settled by a bunch of psychiatrists and psychologists incorrectly applying the diagnostic system to say he's crazy.
I think that you said that you were surprised by the reaction to this letter. What was your motivation? How long did it take you to write it?
10 minutes.
Really?
These are, when I said the letters, absolute common sense. And for someone who's worked in the diagnostic system for as long as I have, the claims that he should be considered mentally ill are on the face of them absurd.
Yeah.
It's not hard to state what's so obvious.
You have a book coming out soon. It's called, the working title is "Trump is Not Crazy, We Are." Tell me about that.
Well, I started this book well before Trump announced for the presidency. In fact, early on, when he first began his candidacy, a TV producer called and asked me to go on a show like this to discuss his diagnosis. And I said that I couldn't do that because I didn't think he had one. I said that I could say he was a jerk, a classic jerk, that was well known. And she said at the time, we don't need you for that because that's not newsworthy. Everyone knows that. That Trump could have gotten to this position is absolutely incredible. It's partly a tribute to his being a very successful con man, but even more, it speaks to the fact that we have a great sickness in our society that he was able to take advantage of. And that sickness, more than anything, is the inequality that has so many people feel left out of the system. And he filled that vacuum. He filled it with falsehood. He's an insincere spokesperson for the people who voted for him. But they have great hurt, and we need to address that hurt, but we need to address it politically. Attacking the person of Donald Trump isn't the issue. It's attacking the policies and then going much further, finding out how we can solve the problems in our society that have so many people so desperate that they'll vote for someone who's so obviously unsuitable for office.
Thank you, Dr. Allen Frances. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We come right back. What does anti-Semitism have to do with the Electoral College? Well, we'll let Donald Trump explain that.